Hey guys, my guest tonight, Byron Lacy, has been an alien contactee for most of his life, and boy does he have a story to tell. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks, find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everyone, welcome to Space Mystery Week. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong, and we actually have some new members coming on this month. But what that means is that we have people not only in Sacramento, but we have people spread up and down the state of California. And again, what that means is that we can get you. It might take us a little bit, a day or two, because California is a huge state. You know, when people think of California, they kind of think of us like Hawaii, right? Beaches and all that good stuff. Well, that's true. That's true on the West Coast. But for those of us that live further inland, we have deserts, we have high desert, we have mountains, we have a lot of farmland, and it's a spread out state, let me tell you. Oh, no. Don't be doing that tonight. It's a spread out state. My internet's doing weird things tonight. Lots of news out there. So hopefully the internet holds up. I didn't have time to do a reset. But anyway, even if it takes us a couple days to get to you, it's really a non-issue, because what happens in that case is that we have psychics and mediums on staff who can call you and talk with you about your issue, and in most cases calm things down before we get out there, and that gives us a couple extra time. But we won't go more than 2 days to get you. I promise that. If worst comes to worst, we'll do a Skype thing with you or whatever to get the facts, right? So yeah, but if you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. Facebook, we are California Haunts Radio, California Haunts. My name. Twitter, we're California Haunts. You can find us on TikTok under California Haunts. You can find us on Instagram, and that is under my name, under Ghosty Gal. And you can find us over at Twitch as well under Cal Haunts, I believe. And also, what did I miss? Twitter. I'm trying to remember all of them. There's so many of them. But all you have to really do is, Meetup. We're also California Haunts. So all you have to really do is just Google, and we'll just pop right up, and you'll find us. YouTube. YouTube.com/@California Haunts Radio. You can find us at YouTube. Now, along that line, tonight will be a phoned-in interview. So, you guys, I'll flash some graphics up on the screen throughout the interview as I'm asking this gentleman questions. And that way you can either have dinner, watch it, or put me on and just kind of put me in the corner and listen to me, right? And do your laundry. I have people that carry me around while they're doing laundry. That's cool. That's cool, too. You know, whatever. But I'm just going to let you know, heads up on it's a phone interview. Now, if you're watching from Facebook tonight and you like what you see and hear, well, you like what you hear in this case, feel free to share the show with others, because we're trying to gain momentum and build up our following. You guys have done a great job doing that, and I really appreciate it. But could always, get some more following going. Also, if you haven't done so already, yourself, you can follow us on Facebook. Just click that follow button. I'd really appreciate it. I direly appreciate it. And also, if you like what you hear tonight, please be sure to leave us some happy faces, some hearts, and just show me some love. Because what that does is it puts us up higher in the algorithm on Facebook, which means that they distribute us out farther and more people get to see us. Same thing with making comments during the show. Feel free to make comments. I'll try to read as many as I can tonight. And the more you do that, the more it puts us up in the algorithms. Because again, we're trying to get the word out about the show, right? I mean, like if you're watching it tonight and maybe there's someone in the back bedroom of your place or kitchen, you can say, hey, there's this little show on, this cool little show about UFO abductions and things like that. Just share us, because the idea is to share. Okay, it looks like we're going to have a shaky internet tonight, so we're going to do the best we can, and just bear with us. That wasn't too bad. I've been blinked out even worse before. All right, there must be a lot of news going on out there. Okay, that being said, YouTube is the same thing as far as the algorithm goes. If you're watching from YouTube tonight and you like what you see or you like what you hear, please be sure to hit those thumbs up and smiley faces and all that. And also to comment, because again, that puts us up higher in that algorithm at YouTube so more people see us. And be sure to share us. Share. Also at YouTube, if you haven't done so already, feel free to subscribe. We have more than 700 videos sitting over there of this show that we've done for the past 3 years. And I think that I'm a journalist. I'm a photojournalist. I like to change it up. So you're not only going to get paranormal topics, you're going to get other stuff as well. News-related, current news, things like that. And there's so many of them over there, it can be overwhelming. So what I've done is I've started to put them into separate categories and folders, and I'm just about done doing that. So for instance, if you're into alien abductions and things like that, there's a folder for that. If you're into Medium Nancy Matz, who's on here on Fridays, there's a folder for that. If you're into astrology, there's a folder for that, etc., etc., etc. And, ancient history, all that stuff. So I've made it a lot easier to find these things, because believe me, even I get a headache when I go in to look for a past guest, or I go in to find information on something, or I want to see a certain show to get info off of it, and there's all these shows sitting there. It gives me a migraine, total migraine. So I decided to put them into categorized folders. Okay. My guest tonight, Byron Lacy, has a new book out, and he feels that he has been a lifelong abductee, and he's going to come share a story with us. And he feels not only is a lifelong abductee, it's a generational thing in his family. So not only was he abducted, his grandfathers and great grandfathers and all that went down the line in his family. Okay, today starts what I call Space Mystery Week, and we're going to be talking with people, people that have been abducted. We're going to be talking tomorrow. Wilbur Allen's going to join us, and he's going to talk about his experiences. Plus, he designed a camera that's infrared that he could look up in the sky with and take photos. And he claims that he has gotten 3,000 photos of Tic Tacs with this camera. So we're going to have some of those to show tomorrow and him. Wednesday, we're going to have Northern California MUFON on, and that's going to be a great show. And then Thursday, Mr. Z is going to be with us, and he has a unique tale of abduction that I think you guys are going to find very interesting. And then Friday, Nancy Matz is going to be with us talking about, how do you sense a time to look up in the sky, either with a camera or whatever, to sense that there's something up there that shouldn't be up there? So we're going to be talking about that Friday. So it's going to be a packed week. I want to put the announcement out right now before I call our guest that we were going to do the show at 6:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, but Mr. Allen requested that we do it at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. his time, because he didn't want to run into the late hours with the show. So put that in your little notepads in your data banks that we're going to be on at 1 p.m. Pacific tomorrow with Wilbur Allen. And of course, for the people that are working and can't see it live, you'll be able to see it in the evening. Okay? All right. Let me check the chat room, and then I'm going to make a phone call and call this gentleman out. And again, hello, Jerry. Jerry Bazer is on my team. And again, as I said, feel free to comment. Feel free to give us thumbs up if you like what you hear. Share us, all that good stuff. We always leave you wanting more. And if anybody has come over from TikTok, welcome. Right now, this is the only way we can do this, because I do not have 3,000 followers to be able to go live on TikTok as well, and all that good, with the show as well. It's all off my PC right now. All right. So I'm going to call this gentleman, and it'll be a phone call, so you don't have to sit there and watch the screen. I will have a couple place setters on there where I'll be flashing his book. I'll be flashing his photo. And that way, you'll have something to look at instead of looking at me for a solid hour. And, if you've ever done radio or anything like this before, when something like this happens and you have to be on camera all the time, this is the time that you're going to get the runny nose and all that's going to happen, because that's just how life is, right? All right. So without further ado, let me get him on the phone. And like I said, if you like what you hear during the show, please share it. Share it far and wide, because that's what we're looking to do. Okay, let me get this going. I have a unique way I do these, so I got to get it. I've done presets on this, and we'll see if the presets work. You never know. Murphy's Law, right? Let's do this.
Hello?
Hello. Byron?
Yes, ma'am. This is Byron Lacy.
This is Charlotte with California Haunts Radio.
Yes, ma'am.
We're on the air. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be on your show.
Fantastic. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 73 years old. I live in Nacogdoches, Texas. I'm an artist, a writer, an alien contactee. I produce electronic music on synthesizers and I live out in the woods. I have 3 degrees, 1 in English and 2 in art.
Fantastic. And I saw your, I kind of went through your background a little bit. I'm fascinated by it. You feel that, that you've been through abductions and that they're generational?
Yes, at least 4 generations. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and me. But from a discussion with my father, I know some people in the family that aren't in my line of descent were abducted.
Now, how did you know when the abduction started for you, and how old were you?
Well, the very first time was in 1956, and I was 6 years old. But I did not know they were aliens, and they kept coming, but I didn't know it. But I would find marks, bruises, punctures, but I didn't know what they were from. I didn't know I was an abductee until 2009.
And how?
Would you like?
Yes, please. I'd love to hear it.
The first event?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mom would always take me into bed and tuck me in. And she would always ask me if I wanted the hall door left open and the hall light on. And I would always say yes. One night, we had just moved to Seagoville, and I was going to start school at the end of summer, and it was basically right before summer. That's how I realized the other day, or a month or 2 ago, that it was 1956. Anyway, she took me into the bedroom, put me in the bed, and I watched her leave the room, and she left the door open, and I turned around to lay down, and there were 3 little heads sticking up above the mattress on the side of the bed down at the foot. And this shocked me because I didn't know how anybody would get in my room, and I didn't even think about the fact that they were so small, but they were. So I yelled for Mom to come in, and she came back into the room, and I told her what had happened, but they were gone when she got there. So she didn't say anything. She didn't say I was dreaming. Of course, she had just put me in bed. She didn't say I was dreaming or anything. She just tucked me in and said to go to sleep. So the very next night, the exact same thing happened. The exact same way. Every bit of it. They were gone. She tucked me in and left the room. The third night, she came in, and she tucked me in, and she sat down on the bed, and she said, "Son, if they come in here again, don't call me, because when I get here, they're going to be gone. You're just going to have to learn to deal with them yourself." And then she tucked me in, and she asked me if I wanted the door left open, and I said yes. And she left the room. I turned around, and the 3 little guys were there. And there was also a big guy that looked a lot like Captain Hook. He had a big hat, or I thought he did. I realized in 2009 that this creature was a mantis, but he was disguised, at least in my mind. And he looked like he had a pirate's vest on, which would have been his robe. And he had a billowy shirt. And I couldn't see his legs because of the darkness. And he moved around really weird, sort of like he was dancing or something. But I think that was just the way the mantis walks. Of course, I didn't know it at that time. Well, suddenly I couldn't move. And it was like I was tied down or something, or paralyzed. I couldn't move. And the room grew bigger. All the walls spread out further. And the bed began to rotate in the middle of the room. And the little guys, the 3 of them, they stayed like they were hooked to the bed. They stayed with it as it rotated. Of course, this was probably all an illusion for me. Anyway, as this was going on, I suddenly got where I felt like I was going to start screaming and freak out. and everything was gone. They were gone. The room was back to normal size. The bed was where it was supposed to be. It wasn't moving. And the big Captain Hook was gone. So I lay back down and I pulled the covers over my head because I decided if they came back, I didn't want to see them because they looked strange. And I knew that I couldn't get any help from my parents. So that was the end of the first event.
So your mother knew about them, obviously.
Yes, from what she said, she did.
Wow. Wow. So after, go ahead. Sorry about that.
An event happened in 1961, although I still didn't put two and two together, but it showed that my father knew about them, and they had known about them before 1956.
Wow. Wow.
Would you like me to tell you about that?
Absolutely.
All right. A song became very popular in the United States, and it was from England. I had a radio that I listened to all the time. And the song, this was 1961. The song was, "Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight?"
I remember that.
Yep. It stuck in my mind. And one night it stuck in my mind and I could not go to sleep. It played over and over all night long. And my mom came and got me up to go to school, to eat breakfast and go to school. And we stumbled into the kitchen. I followed her and I said, "I can't go to school. I haven't slept any." And she said, "Why not?" And I told her, and I asked her what it was, the song playing over and over again. And she said she didn't know. And she finished cooking breakfast and had me eat. And then she took me and put me on the sofa, turned on the TV, and she gave me a Coca-Cola. That's what we drank at that time. Of course, we would have called it that, even if it was 7-Up.
Right.
And she told me to watch TV and to definitely not go to sleep because I was going to go to sleep that night and I was going to go to school the next day. Those were like commands. And she went into the dining room and got the phone off the wall and carried it into the kitchen and had some kind of discussion with someone. Now later I found out it was my father. Anyway, he comes home at 4 o'clock from work and he walks right past me. I'm sitting on the sofa watching TV. He walks right past me, takes my mother by the hand and leads her into the kitchen, and they have a discussion, which I can hear them talking, but I can't tell what they're saying. He comes back out of the kitchen, and I'm laying down on the sofa. He sits down on the edge of the sofa, and he looks at me and he says, "Son, if you don't straighten up, we're going to have to take you to a psychiatrist."
Wow.
Now, a psychiatrist was not a good thing in 1961.
No.
And I didn't know what was going on. I just had a song playing in my mind all night. And he said, "We Lacys don't talk about ourselves. We don't tell anybody what has happened to us. You don't want to be famous," because I had talked about wanting some kind of jobs where I would be famous. "And you don't want people to know anything about you. You had a relative in the 1890s who told people that little men came in her room at night and talked to her. They eventually put her in an insane asylum where she died. And you don't want that to happen to you." He also said that nothing happened, that he only knew things that happened to his parents when he was around. They didn't tell him about things that happened when he wasn't around. So that was pretty much what he said to me, and I didn't realize at that time, but in 2009, I realized from what he said that he remembered the event that happened in 1956, even though at that point, sometimes I'd remember it and sometimes I wouldn't because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
There's even a term for that, but I can't remember what it is.
Oh.
So we obviously had some people that weren't in my direct line of descent that were abducted.
Right.
And I found out about my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather from a psychic medium named Marla Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 2009, when I discovered I was an abductee, Whitley Strieber was having a Dreamland Festival in the city where Elvis Presley grew up or lived. Can't remember the name of it now. And it wasn't that long a flight, so I decided to go. And I took a picture of my father so that maybe she could talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one that she said I had come prepared. And I sat down at the front of the audience, which I usually wouldn't do. But she took the picture and she held it against her leg. She didn't even look at it. And suddenly she fell down. And she said that it was like someone had pushed her. And she said she was trying to tell me that that was the way my father died. And I said, well, he fell and broke his hip. And then he went in the hospital for an operation. The day my sister called me and told me he was going to have an operation, I said, oh my God, he's going to die. She goes, no, they do this all the time. Well, 2 days after the operation, he died. So anyway, she asked him if he knew about the aliens.
Mm-hmm. And
he said, I know everything, which is the way my father felt. He was a Taurus, and he felt like he knew everything. So I was getting a lot of validation that it was actually him.
Right.
And then he told told her that I was the fourth generation.
Wow.
And he told, all of a sudden then she goes, I want you to tell the audience about your relatives, because I have to do something. So she turned around away from the audience and was obviously talking to my father. And I told him about the Lacys and the Blue Lacy and all that kind of stuff. My great-grandfather bred a dog, which is the state dog of Texas now, because it was the only dog ever bred in Texas, the only dog breed. Anyway, I went up and thanked her at lunch for talking to my dad, and she said, well, there's something I want to tell you. There's something your father wanted me to tell you, and he didn't want me to tell you in front of anyone because he thought you might cry. And I said, okay. And she said, I almost feel like crying now, but I'm not going to, luckily. He said that he is proud of you, and he doesn't think that you know that. And I turned around and started crying and left the room. So it was a very interesting event. I was there for 3 days, and during one of the nights I couldn't sleep very well, but I woke up in the morning with bruises. So I had been abducted there. I also met a woman who was studying hypnotherapy, and she was an abductee, and she wanted to help abductees, and she did a regression on me, and we found out about another event that happened in 1961. I knew about the event, but she gave me more details. I was in a music class at that time, and I was 11 years old, and a lot of us were in the music class because we didn't want to take PE when we got into high school, and we wanted to be in the band.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to take music class.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be in PE. I was a little guy. So our teacher was sick. This was Mr. Cathy. And he was sick one day. He'd never been sick before. And we had a substitute teacher, and I had never seen this person before. And Cedarville was a small town where you would almost always at least see somebody in the grocery store or something like that. And she was in her 20s and a college student or just out of college. And she was very pretty. I almost fell in love with her. Well, she said, since it's the end of winter, which it was getting ready to be spring, we're going to go outside and do calisthenics. And we all, of course, are going, we took music so we wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
So she took us outside on this gravel driveway that ran by the school, which was an old brick schoolhouse, 2 stories tall, from the 30s or 40s. And she had us line up and put our hands out and touch fingertips and then move a foot away from each other. And there were about 20 of us, maybe less. So then she goes over and stands under this big oak tree while we're standing out in the sun. And it wasn't very cool. So we're having to do calisthenics. And we start, and she's counting. We're doing jumping jacks. And all of a sudden, well, she quit counting too. But all of us just stopped. And we're all staring above the oak tree like we're mesmerized almost. And there above it was this thing. I put together a lot of model boats at that time, and I love warships and stuff. Mm-hmm. And this looked like a George Washington class nuclear submarine turned with its conning tower down and removed, and the battle deck of the USS Missouri attached to the bottom, except that the guns weren't guns, they were runes, like some of those first ships on Star Trek that come across the sky. And we're all staring at that. And then it's gone, and she says, okay, that was nothing. Let's get back to work. And she didn't even see it. Mm-hmm. She was standing under a tree. She didn't look up, or not that we knew of. And so we start doing the jumping jacks again, and almost immediately the bell rings. So that was an hour-long class, but we experienced about 15 or 20 minutes of it. Mm-hmm. So there was missing time. And when I never saw that substitute teacher again after that either.
Wow.
So I actually think she was a hybrid, and she was sent there to take our class up into the ship. Mm. But we did do regression in Memphis or wherever it was. I remember walking inside of the ship, walking down the length of the ship pretty much, going in a room with the class and sitting down at some tables. And then that's all I remember. And there were some glass tubes, big or glass pipes, and they had water bubbling up inside of them, but there was nothing in them but water or whatever it was. And then that's all I could remember. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting to remember inside of it. And nobody talked about it after it was over with. Although a few years ago, a woman that was in my class, although she was sick that day, she said when she had pneumonia and she remembered it very well. And when she got back, several of the kids told her about the event.
Mm-hmm. You know, I find this interesting. You know, when you talk about bruising, you know, and waking up with bruising, what do you mean? Where were the bruises, and what do they look like?
Well, they're usually about the size of a quarter or a $half. Mm-hmm. And they're usually on the calves or on the arms, the forearm. Yeah, I've had one on my bicep, and they already look like they're 3 or 4 days old. They're they're not like a fresh bruise. They're like one that's partly healed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think these are from being grabbed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they are around the ankles and stuff. But I think that they're actually, their ships are a different frequency than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a different frequency. And they have to lower their frequency to come down and mess with us or to get us. But to take us up into a ship, they have to raise our frequency. And I have heard, and I believe this to be true, that the bruises are a slight damage from having our frequency changed and then put back to normal.
That makes sense in a lot of ways.
Yes. And that's one reason their ships can disappear. They just go way into another frequency if they're not shooting off across the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is what causes a lot of abductees to start becoming more psychic.
That makes sense too.
When you're psychic, you've raised your frequency through meditation or whatever. Well, they're doing it. Some of us, like, there were many times they were taking me once or twice a month.
Do you know why they were taking you?
I have an opinion about it. I don't know why.
Okay.
I do know I would get these punctures on me, and almost all abductees get these little punctures. Sometimes they're 3 in a row. Sometimes they're 3 in the shape of a triangle. I've had 21 on one wrist, 3 rows of 7. And a psychic again told me that she thought these were some kind of inoculation to protect us against germs we might pick up from other humans on the ship.
Interesting. And, you know, as you got older and these things were going on, did you tend to notice a lot more? You know, as far as when you were on the ships and stuff, or did that have to all come out through hypnosis?
No. But my first wife, we were married for 14 years, and she said, you know, you can hurt yourself while you're in bed asleep more than any person I've ever seen. Because it would look like I'd run into coffee tables or stuff, and I've been in bed.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd have bruises on my arms.
That's incredible. And it's amazing to me that your parents were well aware of what was going on.
Yes. Of course, nobody talked about anything like that very much.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't on TV. There were some movies about that kind of thing, but not many. And plus, we didn't even have a TV until I was in first grade, 6 or 7. Well, up till I was 7 or 8, because we didn't have one the first year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was isolated.
Now, when you got older, say, you know, in your teen years, late teen years, and were thinking about marrying someone, were you at all concerned that the person that you married would start getting abducted as well? Or you know?
I didn't know until 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did see that ship in 61 and had many strange events. Like my life has been saved 9 different times, or actually 10, and including cancer. I had a sarcoma when I was 2.5 years old, and the doctor was very certain I was going to die, if not during the operation. Shortly, sometime after that, and told my parents they should have another baby. So I have a sister.
Interesting.
And I think they helped keep me alive from the sarcoma.
Absolutely. Now, as you got older too, what was it? The same type of aliens that came to get you every time, or was it like different?
Now, I didn't see them.
Okay.
But in 2009, I was driving home from dinner in town, and I was in front of Walmart at a stoplight, and up above me, at the end of the stoplight, which hung across the road, 4 lanes and a turn lane in the center, was suddenly a shape like a plate made out of water. It was flat and swirling around, sort of like the Stargate in the movie Stargate with Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm.
It was about a foot across, and then it expanded to 6 feet across, and from side to side and top to bottom. And I looked at all the other cars, and nobody noticed it. I closed my eyes to see if it would go away or if I could still see it, and I couldn't. And when I'd opened them, it was still right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the light changed, it exploded without any noise and disappeared before it hit the ground, all of the drops of whatever it was. I think it was plasma.
Mm-hmm.
I told a friend of mine who liked conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and he researched them in books, basically. He didn't own it. Well, no, he did own a computer by then.
Mm-hmm.
He had started researching in books. Anyway, I told him about it, and he didn't say anything. So the next week, on the exact same day, at pretty much the same time, because I was coming home from dinner, the same thing happened. And the next day, we were going to go walk along the creek because we walked for our health
Mm-hmm.
on this nature path. And I told him about it, and he didn't say anything. So we got back to his apartment, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of that thing I told you about?" And he said, "Come inside." So we went inside, and we sat down, and he said, "Do you want to know what I think?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to know what you think." Now, I had told him everything that had ever happened to me
Mm-hmm.
over several years' time. My 9 times of being saved, or 8 times at that point, all that kind of stuff. And he was sitting in a chair in front of his computer, but he was facing me. He said, "You really want to know what I think?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you positive?" I said, "Yeah, I'm positive." He said, "Okay, I think you're an alien abductee." I said, "You're crazy." And he turned around and he looked up something and he wrote down these 2 web addresses, and he said, "When you get home, you look these up and you take these tests, and then you talk to me about it later." So I took the piece of paper and went home and threw it on my desk and didn't mess with it for a couple of days. And he kept going, "Have you looked at those sites yet? Have you looked at those sites yet?" Finally, I got tired of saying no, so I looked at one. And it had these 99 questions, and it said if you answer like 80 of them, or 75 or 80 of them, yes, then you're probably an abductee. Well, I answered yes to all of them but one, and the ones that were strictly for women.
Wow.
On both those pages. And I also found a link to PTSD, and I looked it up, and I realized that I've had PTSD most of my life. So I went back to his house, and I told him that. And about 2 weeks or 3 weeks went by, and he told me some stuff about him. And we figured I had implants, in fact, because of the noise I hear in my head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I got to thinking that if they were abducting me, they were bound to be getting something from me, and that this thing should be reciprocal. And if I had implants where they could hear what I hear and see what I see, then they can hear me if I'm talking to them. So I went out under the electric line that runs behind my house through the woods, and I said, "I'm going to talk to y'all every day for 6 hours a day, and I'm going to do it until I die or till you answer me. And I want to know what you're doing to me. I want to know if I'm crazy. I want to know what's going on." And I said that over and over again. I did it for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a Friday, and I was playing guitar for the first time in years and singing at a restaurant. So, and my friend helped me get all the stuff there. And I got through part of a set, and I started forgetting all the words, so I'd have to make up the words. And this guy came out of the audience, and he said, let me have your guitar, and you get your words out of your guitar case, and we'll finish this set. And I'll play for you. I can play guitar. And he could. He can play real good. He later taught me how to play bass. But we did the set, and I finished it with Hey Mr. Spaceman by the Birds, which was the only song that wasn't a real country song, even though it sort of has a country rhythm. Got home, it was about 11. Got to bed, couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. 11:30, 12, 12:30, 1. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put on this CD and meditate, so at least I won't be totally wiped out tomorrow. So the CD has a rhythm in it that entrains you to meditative states. I listen to it all the time for years. Well, I was listening to that, and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I thought I wasn't breathing, and I thought my heart wasn't beating. So I raised up out of the trance a little bit, and everything was fine. My body seemed to be fine. And then I went back down, and once again, I wasn't breathing. My heart wasn't beating. In fact, I got where I couldn't feel my body. There were no phosphines in my eyes. I couldn't see anything. And then all of a sudden, I was in this hammock. Only the hammock was hung from side to side instead of end to end. And there were some blankets in the hammock. And I didn't have any clothes on, and I didn't have my glasses on because I couldn't see very well. If I touched my face to see if my glasses needed to be cleaned, that's when I realized I didn't have them on. I pulled myself out of the hammock by reaching up above my head and grabbing hold of the two sides. Pulled myself out and landed on the floor. And it was warm in there, but not uncomfortable. And I could see that there was an open doorway on part of one wall. And I thought, oh my God, I'm on a spaceship. I got what I asked for. And then I heard a noise, and I go, well, I said an expletive. I don't think I'm ready to talk to aliens right now. Then it faded to black, just like in a movie. It faded, dipped down to black, and then back up. Only when it came back up, I was laying on this metal table, and there were three of the little grays at the foot of the table, and this creature that was about 7 foot tall, that looked a lot like a praying mantis wearing a robe, was standing over in the side. And then somehow my perceptions were split, and I was in the bed watching myself with them. Now, a friend of mine that I've met later named Gerald Sims, who's the alien hunter, and he investigates alien abductions, and he lives in Houston. He told me that they can make you perceive in any way they want. He said most likely I was still with them, but they were making me feel I was in the bed. And I suddenly felt like I was going to freak out. And the tall guy, he thought into my head, don't be afraid. And instantly I was calm. Now, I wasn't calm because of what he said.
Right.
He had commanded my nervous system. Then, the whole thing, I was looking at it more from the bed than from the room I was in. And it was like a hologram on the wall. It turned into black and white. And then the picture shrank down around where all I could see was me on the table from my knees to my neck. I couldn't see anything else. And then it was like a switch flipped, and it was X-ray, and I could see straight into my body. I could see my skeleton, I could see my organs, I could see everything. And then they did the probe on me, and I could see that too. And I wish that this picture hadn't shrunk, because I would have gotten to see inside the little aliens too.
Yeah.
And Joe has told me, I've told him about this whole thing, and he said that they can see an X-ray, and they can make us see an X-ray if they want to. In fact, he said they can make us perceive whatever they want to make us perceive. So then I was in my bed, wide awake. Everything was gone. Everything was normal. And I went, wow, I've been on an alien spaceship. And I got a piece of paper and a pencil, and I drew the weird tall guy, because I knew that had to be fake. That had to be something that didn't exist. And then I went right to sleep. I never go right to sleep. I mean, it always takes me an hour to go to sleep. So it's a wonder that I went immediately to sleep. The next morning I woke up, and I went, wow, I was on the alien ship. I remembered everything. And then I started crying. I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't feel like crying, but I was crying, and I cried for almost an hour. And then it all calmed down. Later that day, I took the picture that I had drawn, and I went over to visit my friend, and I told him what had happened. And he listened very quietly. And I said, but look, I've got this, and this proves, and I was unfolding the piece of paper from my shirt pocket, and I said, this proves it was all just a dream. Because at that point, I sort of wanted it to be a dream, you know? And he said, and he turns around to the computer, and he types in an address, and he moves away and says, take a look. And there was a drawing almost exactly like mine of a man, and it was called a mantis creature, a mantis being.
Wow.
So I knew it wasn't a dream.
Wow. And go ahead, sir.
Well, that's how I discovered I was an abductee.
Wow. And yeah, I was reading a little bit up on you, and I saw some of the photos that you sent me, and you do have scoop marks on your body, don't you?
Yes, I've got 3 on one leg, on my left leg. And I have seen a scoop mark on a friend of mine who's also an abductee, and it was fresh. It looked pretty normal. It was lighter colored, but there was a rim of red right below the skin that looked like blood which had been cooked. So they say that they use a WHEEZER to do that, a scoop, and I think that's probably what it was.
And what do you think they were doing scooping? Were they just getting samples of your skin, or what do you think that was?
Some of the implants are of a material that the body will reject. So they take the implant and they wrap the flap of skin around it, and then they implant it inside the body. And the body just doesn't recognize what's inside of that lump of skin. So it doesn't reject it.
Okay. Now, some people, when they have implants, they kind of figure out where they're at. Were you able to figure out where the implant was?
I have figured out about one of them. Well, actually, I know about 2.
Okay.
One of them I discovered when I was meditating. I just focused in on that sound, and I finally got such a fine focus on it, I was able to follow it. And it went to a place right above my right ear, or my left ear, inside my head. Now, the other implant that I found out about, I had gotten this CD that was to cure tinnitus, because I didn't know if I had tinnitus or not. And I think that it cured tinnitus, but it also killed one of the implants or made it quit working. You're supposed to listen to it once a week. I listen to it a couple of hours every day. And one day I woke up the morning and there was no noise in my head. So I thought, well, yay.
Right.
That evening I was watching TV, and it was about in the middle of a television show when suddenly there was a different television show playing, and it was in the middle also. And it was one I would never want to watch. And then my nose hurt like someone had shoved their finger all the way up my nose into my head on the right side. And I felt like my head had been expanded with compressed air. But also, I could breathe better than I've ever been able to breathe before. Like I had a super antihistamine pumped into my head. And that actually lasted 3 days. Well, then just as suddenly, it was like turning the volume down on a radio. The pain went away. The blown up feeling went away. But the being able to breathe stayed. And the noise was back. Worse than ever before. It was loud. And I thought, well, maybe it'll go away when I go to sleep. So I went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, it was still loud. And it was loud all day long. And I lay down to meditate. And by then, I had started talking to them, even though they hadn't talked to me yet. And I said, look, you guys have messed up, and I want you to fix it. I can't go around with this screaming in my head all the time. So I started meditating, and I felt some kind of stirring around my solar plexus. And then I felt a shape that was hexagonal, like a column, rise up out of my body. Now, of course, this was actually energy of some sort. It wasn't a physical thing, but it did have a shape to it. And I could feel that it was being messed with on one of the facets, like in a twirling motion. And all of a sudden, the noise, it started quieting down, and it got back to like it used to be. And then the thing sank back into my body, and everything was back to normal.
Interesting.
It was really strange.
Yeah, your life is so fascinating. And did you ever have I mean, like you say, when you were aboard ship, like the one did kind of communicate with you. Did you ever get any more communication or anything like that?
Yes, but it's always been about stuff having to do with me. I've never gotten to ask any questions. Well, one evening I was meditating, and I was talking with one of them, and they seemed to initiate it. There was a period of about 2 months when they talked to me quite a bit. It was almost like they liked me. And, I lost what they said. Oh, so I thought, and I've been trying to find a way to catch them to where I could actually get some information. So I said, why have you saved my life so many times? And the voice said, we want you alive. And then it was gone. I'm going, yeah, like, that's not obvious. They have kept me from having a car accident. One time, they tell me I was leaving Lowe's where I bought some material for working on my house, and this voice told me to go to the right and take the loop home. And I knew it was them. And I said, no, I don't want to go to the right. I want to go to the left. It's quicker. And they said, you'll have a car accident. And I said, well, I appreciate you looking out for me, but I'm just going to be really super careful. So I headed home the way I wanted to, and all of a sudden this guy just cuts right in front of me in a big black station wagon like truck pickup. I forget what they're called right now. Utility van. And he almost took off my bumper. He didn't touch me. It looked like he was going to. And I slammed on my brakes and I put on my horn. Well, that upset him. So, and I had pulled out from behind him and zoomed around. Well, he came up and he zoomed around in front of me. And this time, he got in front of me and he slammed on his brakes. Well, I flipped my car to the right, and I was right at the exit to another highway that also went to my town. So I took that exit and got away from him. But if they hadn't warned me, because I was looking for something to happen, and it did. The funniest time that they talked to me, I was in Hastings, and there was a movie that I had wanted to watch. It's about a man who wakes up buried in a box, and he's in the Middle East, and all he has is a cigarette lighter. And I have claustrophobia. I thought about watching that movie before, but always no. But it had such an attractive cover that I was drawn to it. And I picked it up, and I was getting ready to go check it out. And the voice said, and this was the same voice I've heard from the Mantis. He said, "Don't win it." I said, "Why not?" He said, "You won't be able to watch it. It'll be a waste of your money." So I said, "Well," once again, I said, "I appreciate you looking out for me, but I'm going to go ahead and try." And he didn't say anything else. And this time I was actually talking out loud to it. So there were probably some people near me listening to me talk to nothing. And I got it home, I ate dinner, then I put it in the machine, the DVD player, and I turned it on. And it opens up, the scene is completely black. And then you hear a cigarette lighter being clicked. And suddenly the lighter comes on, and there he is in this box. And my claustrophobia hit like a typhoon. And I pulled my legs up on the sofa, and I go, "Oh my God." And I turned the movie off, and I thought, well, they were right. I can't watch it. And another time leaving Hastings, they said I was going to go home to eat to save some money, and they said, "Go to Posado's," which used to be a restaurant here. And I said, I don't want to go to Posado's. They said, "Go to Posado's." And I said, "No, I want to save some money." Then all of a sudden I saw the food I wanted to eat. I saw the menu. I saw pictures of the food. I could smell it. I could taste it. This barrage of images flowing through my mind. I went, okay. And they said, "It's Joni's birthday." Joni was a waitress that usually waited on me. "You can give her a copy of your book." And this was a book about my art, a photo book that I had done by one of the photo companies. So I said, okay. So I go there and I start to pick up the book. And then I go, well, I'll just wait and see if she's here. And if she is, I'll come back out to the car. Well, I get inside, and the person that seats you, I forget what they're called, she said, "Joni's here." I said, "Oh, good." She said, "It's her birthday. So wish her a happy birthday, and she'll be real excited." So I go, okay. So she takes me and sits me down, and I said, "I'm going to go out to my car, and I'll be right back." So I went out and got the book and brought it back in, and Joni came up, and I gave her the book and told her happy birthday. And she was really excited she said, How did you remember? And I didn't tell her that aliens had told me.
That's great. You mentioned earlier, there's a question in the chat room about this. You mentioned earlier about those websites that you looked up to answer the questionnaire as to whether or not you've been abducted. you know what those are off the top of your head?
No, but I have looked for them before, and I think you can just put, how do I tell if I've been abducted by aliens? And those will come up.
Okay. Okay. So are you still being taken?
Yes, but it's not very often now. I've been taken, I found signs of it twice this year.
Okay.
Now, they could be taking me without it causing any marks or bruises, too, though. I don't know.
That's true. Of course. Of course. So,
I do have ideas sometimes that I think are not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been
Mm-hmm. So when they take you, what do you think they're doing it for? Are they using your DNA, or what kind of things do you think they're doing to you?
Well, I can tell you what they told me.
Okay.
Of course, there's a little lead up to it. I had this psychic in England that did readings for me, and she would do a reading and send you an MP3 where she talked. And I had one for 2 years, one a year, and everything she said, both those years came true. I did it again the third year, and it was about 3/4 of the way through the year, and almost everything she had told me had come true. Well, one of the things she said in the third tape was, well, it wasn't a tape, it was an MP3.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you may think this is funny, but you're one of them.
Oh.
You're one of the aliens. And she laughed, sort of in a British type of way. And, well, first she said, you may think I'm crazy, and then she said that. So anyway, I had thought about that all year long, and I go, everything for 2 3/4 of the year has come true.
Mm-hmm.
She can't be all that wrong. The odds are in favor that she's right.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and started meditating, and I thought about myself. I thought about how I never fit in with my family. I didn't really fit in with society. Like when I had to work, I did as little as possible, but still not get tired. I did a good job,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't buy into the position. I didn't want to be advancing. I just wanted to get my paycheck and go home. I just didn't feel like a part of society in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about all these things. I felt like I had been left on my parents' doorstep as a baby. So all of a sudden, it was like things clicked in my mind, and I believed it on 3 levels. I felt it intellectually, or 2 levels. I felt it intellectually, and I felt it emotionally. And when that happened, and I thought, well, it's true. All of a sudden, it was like 2 fingers reached into the back of my head, right above my neck, and went straight into my head and grabbed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like an orb and pulled me out of my head. I had no awareness of my body or of the world or anything, but I was still wide awake, except I was this orb, and I was in this blackness, and there were no phosphenes. Suddenly there was a grid of light in front of me, and I think that was to help me orient. And there were 3 beings made of light sitting in these thrones made of light. They looked like they would have been about 8 or 9 feet if they were standing up. And this voice, out of somewhere in this voice, said, "The Council of 3." In other words, he was introducing them. They were the Council of 3. Later, I've actually heard of them, but I'd never heard of them before. And one of them said, the one in the middle, he was thinking at me, and he said, "We've been waiting for you to realize this.
Mm-hmm.
We're very thing streaming into me, and I'm this sphere that can see in 360 degrees, which I can't even comprehend at this point in time in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like a dial-up phone when you used to dial in your modem to get on the internet. It was just screeching, and I saw pictures and all kinds of things flying into me, and then it stopped, and I was wide awake. There was no transition from being in this massively deep trance where I had it was like an NDE, a near-death experience. I had no experience in my body at all, and to being wide awake, laying in bed, and I felt perfectly fine.
Wow.
And I couldn't remember anything except things would come to me a little bit. And the very first thing that came to me one evening when I was meditating was like a voice, but I think it was a voice that had been put into me. And it said, the interest on your loans are the chains of your slavery. And so I immediately started working to get out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a couple of years, but I paid off all my credit cards and everything. Because it hit me so profoundly that it was absolutely true. That debt was what tied me to having to work and everything else, even though I kept working afterwards.
Right.
But I got rid of it, and boy, things were just better.
Absolutely. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm hoping to do more interviews and talk about my book more.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be writing a book, but it's not really going to be about aliens.
Okay.
And I'm not sure yet. I'm working on my art. I'm working on my music.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I produce electronic experimental music, and I was inspired to do this by a CD I was listening to that I meditated to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, this weird music started playing on it that definitely wasn't on the CD, but it sounded like it was. And a year later, I realized if I got some synthesizers, which I don't really know how to play or didn't, I could make that kind of music.
Oh.
It was like an orchestra playing totally abstract music.
Cool.
So I write that, and I use it in reels, and I also put it in CDs, and it's for sale on Amazon and Spotify and Apple and everywhere else. And I make about $35 every few months, which isn't much, but I get a penny a song. So $1 is 100 songs.
Right.
So $35 is whatever 3,500 songs.
Well, it's getting out there, yeah. The word's getting out.
And I have little groups of people all over the world that listen to my music. Like 1 or 2 in Germany, 1 or 2 in China, and then the biggest parts in the United States. And some of them stream it all the time on Spotify. Just not very many.
Oh, it'll build up. It'll build up.
Yeah, I think so. It's slowly increased.
Absolutely. Just keep at it. Keep at it.
I stopped for a while, but I've started writing it again. And I love doing reels because I make the pictures out of artificial intelligence program, and I put my music to it, and they're like 90-second movies.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I've been able to get my machine to make UFOs that are believable.
That's awesome. I saw some of those. Those are cool. Absolutely cool. I want to thank you for coming on. This hour went by so fast.
Yes, it has, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. Love to have you on, later on, down the line. This is fantastic. I thank you so much.
There's a lot more in my book.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to show everybody your book and where to get it too. So hopefully you'll get some sales out of that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. I'd love to have you back at some point.
I'll be glad to come back.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you have a great rest of your evening, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Okay. Well, that was an interesting interview. I've heard stuff I never heard before. I mean, oh, hang on. I just called through on my phone. Wasn't supposed to do that. Okay. Oh, that was him. He must have hit the button. Anyway, yeah, that was a great interview. That's the first interview of the week for this. And just remember tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, we're going to have Wilbur Allen's going to be with us, Dr. Wilbur Allen, and he's going to be talking about this really cool camera that he's designed, infrared camera. And he claims to have over 3,000 photos of Tic Tacs. So we're going to talk to him. And he's also been abducted as well. So we'll get his story as well. But this was fascinating. Mr. Lacy was a fascinating gentleman. Anyway, again, tomorrow we'll be back at 1 p.m. Pacific to continue this. And for the people that aren't going to be home at that time or are able to listen, of course, you'll be able to see the replay on it. So that'll work out. But I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California House Radio. Also, if you like the show, please show me some love. Send me some thumbs up, some hearts, some happy faces. I'd really appreciate it. Like I said, it helps us with the algorithm on YouTube and Facebook. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that follow button on Facebook and subscribe on our YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and share his contact information and where you can get the books and all that. But I will see you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. Here we go. Websites: Byron Lacy Facebook author page, Byron Lacy Facebook page, and he's also got a page on reverbnation.com/Byron Lacy. The book is Chosen: Chronicles of an Alien Abduction. And he does have the other book out, and it's his art book. The Night is a Constant Lover. Poems by Byron Lacy. And of course, you can get those at Amazon. All right, gang. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific with Dr. Wilbur Allen. And have a great evening, everybody. See ya.